Hello, this is Igoro, host of the Igoro Show, and you are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. So keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Hey, welcome to the Steve and Crypto Show, presented by thestevestrout.com. I'm Steve. There's no Crypto. Crypto is not here today. He's off on a family excursion to the wonderful, family-friendly Las Vegas. That's a good place to go. But no, he's off for like a family reunion thing. So we have a special guest to co-host. He's been on the show a couple times. Like I think enough to the point that if we ever start making money on the show, we're gonna have to start paying him. So we'll have to think about that in the future. But we have a writer friend. His recent book is Tell No Man, and he also wrote the scariest book set in Utah, according to the New York Times, I believe it was, called Cry Down Dark. That was a few years ago. Great book. I know he was super hyped about that. I remember we had him on our, I believe it was our Halloween special a couple of years ago to tell us about that. And he was pretty hyped to be on a list with a lot of his peers and inspirations. And I don't know if he has idols, but I think if he did, there's probably a couple on that list of writers. But we have TJ Tranchel. He's here to hang out with us. What's happening, man?
Hey, Steve. Oh, the usual. I'm glad to be here. I used to live in Las Vegas for a while, so I know that crypto's probably getting into trouble.
Yeah, well, I mean, he got the kids with him. They're 2
That
and
doesn't
5.
matter.
It don't matter. No.
Oh, there's daycare.
Yeah.
You just stick them somewhere and they'll be fine and then come back later. As long as you remember where you left them, that's all that counts.
I would just pay like strippers to babysit them or something.
Hey, they got kids too.
Yeah, they know how to do it. They got kids. They got kids and student loans and stuff to pay off. A little extra change won't hurt. Yeah, he should be back next week. But reason I wanted to have you on was recently you got to do something really cool that a lot of us who love horror and our horror nerds would be pretty hyped to have happen. You have an article published in Fangoria magazine.
I do. The April issue for this year just came out a few weeks ago. If you get the subscription copy, it's got Jenna Ortega from the film X on the cover. And if you get the newsstand copy, it's got one of those sweet velociraptors from the new Jurassic Park. I did not write about either of those things.
So quickly, what's the article about?
I took a stab at something a bit older and sort of under the radar, and I wrote about the 2 prequels to The Exorcist that were made in the early 2000s. It's a pretty fascinating story that 2 versions of basically the same story exist. And so they're like, yep, go do that. And I did. And it turned out great. It's a nice 5-page spread with some really good artwork, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
So how did it come together? Did you pitch it to Fangoria, or?
It's a really funny story, actually. I was watching one of the movies on a streaming service. I don't remember what service. They pop up every now and again on the different platforms. And so I was watching one of them, and I made a Twitter comment about how neat it was that these 2 things existed and that, nobody's really talking about it anymore. And the Fangoria editor liked my Twitter post, which is always pretty cool, when somebody like that, recognizes your existence for a moment.
Yeah.
And then I made a dumb joke and said, I'd love to write about these things if you know a place, followed by a winking emoji. Ha ha ha. Right.
Yeah.
Like just taking a shot at something that would never happen. And so he responded with a gift from the original Exorcist that just in long on the bottom had no. And I was like, okay, well, that's the end. But then he messaged me and he said, like, I can't take pitches on the main because I would be answering those all day long. And that's all I would do, would be telling people no. Yes, please write that. And so we went through the official channels after that, and he wanted it for print instead of the web. And so I cranked it out and talked to a couple people about the movies and had my little 1,200 words. And then I just got to sit back and wait. And so it was, I think I made that post last October, actually. And so now it's April, it came out in April. So it was a pretty long process for something like that, but it was a lot of fun working with them. And then seeing the art that eventually came out with it was just an absolute blast. So that's how that happened. It's one of those things that's like never going to happen again, and probably won't happen to anyone else, especially after they hear this story. Right. I keep hoping that like he's not listening, because I don't want him mad at me for telling the story, because I want to be able to write more. But also it's a great story. Like it's a great classic writer story.
It's a cool story. You love those stories about people that like get some kind of success from something and how it just like falls in their laps in a weird way, or just, you know,
I mean, ultimately it was still up to me to produce.
Right.
Like, and I think that's the worry with things like that, is you tell these random people yes to things that they never actually finish projects.
Yeah.
And so I did, because it's like, well, this is my shot. Like, I grew up with Fangoria. Fangoria and I are the same age, and we both came out in 79. And there was that brief time where Fangoria was gone. I was like, I'm never going to be in it. It's because it doesn't exist anymore. But the other fun thing that didn't actually come up in any of our discussions in the process of the article was that when Fangoria was revived in 2018, and they had like this volume 2 that they have now, Phil, the editor, had said that he would choose someone from the first crop of letter writers for the Postal Zone, their little letter to the editor thing,
right,
and give them an assignment. And I happened to have a letter in that first issue, that first volume 2 issue. And I unfortunately didn't track things enough to figure out if he ever picked somebody else. But if he didn't, he did fulfill that promise eventually.
Nice. That's definitely an honor. That's exciting, dude. Have you gotten any feedback?
I haven't. Like, in the backs of the issues, they put everybody's Twitter handles, and I've had a few new followers, but also Twitter's pretty rough right now. And so maybe some of that hasn't caught up yet. But the good news is, even though I haven't like gotten any, hey, that was cool feedback, other than from people that I already know, I haven't had any negative feedback either. I haven't had any random people swearing at me for ruining their movies or saying bad things, because those 2 movies aren't as good as they should be. That's why there's 2 of them. And so, you know, I haven't had any of that negative reader reaction either. Right. So I'm just gonna, like, I can live without the good stuff if it means I'm not getting any bad stuff.
Well, the issue's only been out a couple weeks now, so it'll start pouring in.
Maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see. I'm ready for it. I could take it.
Yeah, fingers crossed for the positive, though.
Right.
Just be like, how dare you disrespect the man who wrote the scariest book in Utah? Like, the ball's on you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's cool. That's fun, man. I'm actually excited for you. You know, we go a little ways back, and I'm proud, dude, because that's cool, man. It's like my buddies in Fangoria.
Right. That's how I feel. I still feel like that. It's like, me? Really? are you sure? And like, what's cool is every time somebody else posts something about it, like another one of our Pacific Northwest people who happens to work at a Barnes and Noble also made a post, and the current publisher owner liked that post also. And, you know, so people see it, and more people see different people's posts. So every time it gets out there, you know, it gets a little bit more of a view. The hard part, though, of course, is that the way Fangoria is running right now is that if it's in the print magazine, it's only in the print magazine.
Right.
And so it has that kind of exclusivity. So it's like, I can't just link out the post
Right.
to a bunch of people because it was on the web. No, this is print. This is the only place this exists right now.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. It'd be great to share it more, but also that exclusivity is pretty sweet.
Right. So honestly, personally, if it was me every day, I'd probably pick up my issue and thumb through and just be like, oh, look, that's my article. At least twice a day.
The good news is that I have a subscription right now. So I got the subscriber version in the mail when it came out. And then I got the newsstand version sent to me as a contributor's copy. So I have both of them.
Very
So
cool.
all the interior stuff is the same. It's just that front cover that's different. So I got both of them, which is great because the Jurassic Park cover is a little more viewer friendly.
Right.
Whereas the Jenna Ortega cover, you know, it's got her screaming her head off with a broken finger. It's pretty gruesome because it's Fangoria, and you know, it should be.
Did you actually get to see X?
I did. I liked it, but I don't necessarily want to see it again.
Right.
So it was fun. But yeah, they didn't hold back.
No, it got a little
the blood and the violence and the awkward old people sex.
The awkward old people sex is what got me. Like the blood and violence, you know,
we're used to that, but old people having sex. No, oh no.
And it wasn't just like assumed like, oh, they're in there having sex behind that door. No, it was like you saw
there's some wrinkly
motions
ass out there.
and like that was really like, you know, the girl got her finger smashed and everything, but that wrinkly ass going up and down was one of the most frightening things I've ever seen in a movie.
It's great that a movie like that got such a wide release.
Yes.
That's what's awesome.
Yes, that's what I've been talking about that through the whole pandemic. There's all these horror movies getting these big pushes and wide releases. It's only good for it can only do good for everybody in the industry, you know, writers, podcasters, bloggers, just studios, everybody.
And there's still great new original stuff on the streaming services, but just that experience of the theatrical release. Like, I know there's a lot of negativity about it because there are a lot of crappy people out there who seem to have the agenda just to ruin a night for everybody else. But when you get like a really good fan base, I think there were about a dozen people in the show that I went to for X, and everybody was into it. A few people didn't stay through the credits, unfortunately, and I feel bad for them. But everybody else hung tight, and you know, they were into it.
Yeah, I think that's been I've noticed that more last handful of years, people staying through the credits. Like back in the day when we were younger, just movies over by. But like ever since like Marvel started dropping like post-credit stuff, everybody started hanging out longer. I think that's part of it. And it's cool.
And, you know, and without spoiling anything for anybody, just to know that there might be something.
Yeah.
And there was, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So if you still have a chance when you're hearing this, go see X, see it on demand, whatever.
Yeah.
Watch the whole movie.
That's what I did. Watched it on demand. didn't get a chance to make it to the theater, but kind of wish I did now.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, could you imagine
Except
watching that with
the
like
scene.
a bunch of other people?
Yeah, the awkward. Yeah, it probably get weird. It must have got weird during the sex scene.
I didn't have anybody sitting near me. We were all pretty spaced out, so
Yeah.
so that was good.
Yeah, just groans or something.
Yeah, but it's all part of
Yikes.
the experience.
But anyways, congrats on the Fangoria thing. It's maybe down the road you'll write a story about the old people's sex scene 10 years from now for Fangoria.
Maybe like retrospective on Wrinkle Ass.
Wrinkle Ass. That would be a good horror movie in itself, just Wrinkle Ass.
Maybe here's our next slasher icon.
Wrinkle
This guy's wrinkly ass.
Who would play Wrinkle Ass?
Anyone.
Just take a good makeup job.
Liam Neeson can play Wrinkle Ass.
With his, oh my God.
He has a special set of skills.
Set of skills and a great wrinkly ass. Oh man. If this, that's disturbing. It's disturbing. Well, on my last episode, I need to get away from wrinkle ass, but yeah, my last episode, I had the owner of Nightmare Toys, which actually is based in Vegas too. They have a popular online shop and everything. We had Christy from there. She came on and told us about the shop, which was really fun chatting with her and hearing the story of how she started in a little shop in Alabama and moved to Vegas. And now it's one of the biggest horror merch and toy and collectible retailers, online and their brick and mortar store, which is pretty cool.
I know where to go next time I visit.
There you go. It seemed like a place to go. It's like a destination. Like there's,
Nice.
if you look on YouTube, there's 100 people got videos of their trip to Nightmare Toys, touring it and stuff. It's cool, man. It looks like a cool shop. They got it all like huge murals on the outside of the building out front. And she was saying they even got like the bathrooms painted. Like people
That's
go
wonderful.
in bathrooms taking pictures and selfies and stuff. Like it's like, how is taking selfies in the bathroom without murals? But okay, sounds cool. But yeah, that was what we did last week. And this week I am beyond excited. I've been doing my horror host series here, and we have we call him a living legend. He's like an icon. He is coming up on his 50th year of performing on screen as Count Gore. We have Dyszel, the actor. He was one of the longest running Bozo performers, Bozo the Clown.
No, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
That he created a character called Captain 20 that was like a sci-fi kids show. And this was all in the DC area, and Count Gore. He was, actually, there was a point when he was performing all three characters. And if you know about how old TV work, local television, how they produced all this content and shows, it's work, man.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't even think of the words to imagine trying to put in those days, putting together, producing, writing.
That's the kind of work that you think you would have quit doing a long time ago. 50.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything for 50 years because I'm not that old.
Yeah, like it's hard enough to be out of bed for an hour, like let alone producing a show for 50 years. But he's been doing it as Count Gore, coming up on 50 years. He was the first host to do his show online. Like when the online boom started, he first guy to do that, and that launched how many horror hosts are out there on YouTube and everywhere now because of Count Gore. He's inspired a lot of people, man. Like the writer, Steve Niles.
Yeah.
He's been interviewed and talked about how growing up watching Gore Duvall in the DC area, like inspired and helped create his love of horror. So, without this dude, we wouldn't have the work that guy's put out.
Right. That's awesome.
It's cool, man. And he was awesome to talk to. Definitely, I felt privileged and honored to have, an hour with him.
Right. Especially if he's got that busy of a schedule. Obviously, he's probably not doing 3 shows anymore, but
he's semi-retired now. He produces he actually built the studio in his basement.
Oh, that's a perfect place
his
for
original, his crypt studio is in his basement now, and he goes, I guess he films in batches for like a month out. And it releases an episode a week, and it's pretty cool. And he actually has, I don't know if you have a Roku device. He has a Roku channel.
Oh, that's great.
To Count Gore Duvall Presents, and every month he releases the 4 episodes on there, so you don't have to watch it online. Because I know I'd rather watch it on my TV than on my computer screen.
But we're so blessed right now to be able to get not just that kind of stuff, but also to be able to dive into archival material of these kind of people and be able to track some of that history, because that's what it is. It's cultural history. And I mean, that's why the Elvira book was a bestseller, because it's part of our cultural history. And it's not just dorky nerds in their basement living at their mom's house.
Yeah.
It's part of our media literacy. It's part of our history. And to have a guy like that still around now is absolutely amazing, and still into what he's doing, instead of being like, oh no, I did that when I was a kid and I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, it's when I had Lord Bloodraw, the horror host, on a month and a half, 2 months ago, he was telling me about a conversation with John Stanley, who is in the Bay Area. He's a horror host legend, and he made a comment about how the horror host it's an American folk art.
It really is.
Which is cool, because it is an American thing. That it's just sad that so many of these performers, when they were doing it, all the legends, they didn't have all like digital filming and everything back in the day. They like reused film, so majority of their footage is gone. It's like lost. So we need conversations with people like Gore Duvall and other hosts to keep like the legacy and to teach people.
Yep.
I would
hopefully
like to
they're
see
redoing some of the stuff that they did back then, obviously in a more modern sense and after years and years, but still being able to retouch on some of the same old films that they did. That's the glory of public domain too.
Yeah.
Just exploiting things that are for free.
Pretty much. But yeah, that's what we're doing this week. We're going to talk with Gore Duvall, and I don't think really much more needs to be said about him that he's not going to cover. I think before we get to the interview with Dick Dyszel, aka Gore Duvall, I got to remind everybody to visit Steve and Crypto Show on Patreon, patreon.com/Steve Crypto. And we have the merch shop over on Etsy. Just get on there and search Steve and Crypto. And we got t-shirts, mugs, magnets, all kinds of stuff. You can always support us by sharing our show and our posts on social media. He's CryptoZoo88. The Steve Strout. That's on Instagram and Twitter. And then we have a Facebook group for the show. It's the Steve and Crypto Show podcast. Just search that and the group will pop up. And where can we find our special guest host on social media?
Everywhere. I'm the easiest person to find and follow because there's only one of me. On Twitter, where I am actually J_Tranchell, TRANCHELL. And that's the same way you'll find me on the web, www.tjtranchell.net, which is a place you can find events that I'm doing, as well as purchase copies, signed copies of my 4 books up until Number 5 comes out in October.
Oh,
Also, I would just like to say that if you wear a Steven Crypto shirt, you are automatically at least 15% sexier than you were before. Like that's a low range. Some of you may be like 30 to 45% sexier than you were before, but at least 15%. It just kind of automatically bumps you up.
that's a fair number. The hats are even better.
Oh, the hats are great to put all your pins on.
Yes.
Like even non-Steven Crypto pins, it's okay. Because that's what I did. All my pins are on the hat.
Nice. Well, it's a good thing you're already married, because if you wore that hat out in public as a single man, you'd be in trouble. You'd be in trouble.
My wife's pretty tough. She's a roller derby girl, so she'd keep me safe. But
she don't let you wear it out the house though.
No, not that one. It's got a nice spot right here in the office.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the conversation with Dick Dyszel, and he'll tell us all about the Count Gore Duvall.
Excellent.
My lords and ladies, Lord Blooddraw here, and you are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. Now, if you're a horror fan, you know this is the place to be. Ha ha!
You are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. I am Hank, the world's greatest, the host of Death by DVD.
I'm Linnea, and I like Death by DVD. It's a statement.
And I'm in your house. So, once you finish listening to this episode and download 3 more, head on over to www.deathbydvd.com, where there are over 130 blood-soaked episodes all about your favorite horror, exploitation, cult, and psychotronic movies available to stream and download for your listening displeasure. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Steve and Crypto Show, and remember to start locking your back door.
I'm Mr. Lobo of Cinema Insomnia, and you're listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. Or are you?
Hey, we're on the Steve and Crypto Show with a guest that I'm very excited about, somebody I've been talking to a while about coming on the show. I did a Q&A with him a few years back on thestevestrout.com when I did the original Horror Host Profile series. But now we have the icon here himself. Well, a close friend of him, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
We have Dick Dyszel, the man who portrays the legendary Count Gore Duvall. I assume he portrays him. He looks a bit like him. He's a little more color in his face. But we're here at Dick Dyszel. He's been in showbiz for a long time.
Way too many years.
Too many. Is it really too many, though?
You realize that February 3rd of next year will be the 50th year, marks the 50th year since my first broadcast in Washington.
Wow. Now, is this as the count? As the count,
yeah. I was in Washington about 6, 7, 8 months before that, but it took us that long to get the management convinced that this would be a good move. And I had to fight hard, and I won.
Yeah, you had to fight to get them to actually let you do the horror host thing.
And what's surprising, I didn't ask for any more money. It was like, I'm going to give you this. And they still were reluctant.
So at that point, you were actually doing 3 gigs at once, at one time.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's work. So the character actually originated before the DC move, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, actually, I did a character which I stole the name off of a piece of film. M.T. Graves, M.T. Graves. Turns out M.T. Graves was a famous horror host in Miami. I didn't know that. I was in Paducah, Kentucky at the time. We were putting a new station on the air, and they said, we saw this film clip go up. M.T. Graves, there was this company was selling movie intros, and up came Night of Terror with M.T. Graves. I said, hey, let's have a hosted horror movie. And the general manager said, you're hired. And I said, how much more am I going to get paid? He goes, nothing. Have another beer. So I did, so we did that. Actually, the first time I did a vampire was actually prior to that. I was working for the same station. It was a radio station at the time. And a young lady I knew who worked for the Parks Department said, hey, look. Oh, by the way, at the time, this is 1970. So it was kind of people had, wore strange clothes. My girlfriend had made me a cape. So I walked around town with a cape on. So I was the guy with the cape. And she came up there and she says, hey, we're having this for Halloween thing, this haunted walk through the park. And we need someone to scare the kids when they cross over this bridge. And you got a cape. You could be a vampire or something. And I said, oh, what the heck? Why not? So I kind of put some makeup on. I didn't know anything about makeup, put the cape on and scared some kids. So that's how I got started.
And if I remember when we did the Q&A, you mentioned that this started that the MT Graves started, you guys just having over pizza and beer.
Yeah, well, that's what happened.
Yeah,
we were sitting, the station hadn't gone on the air yet. We were sitting there drinking beer and eating pizza, watching these movie opens with the general manager, and he was looking for feedback, and that's when I blurted out, we need a horror host, and that's when he said, you're hired. But that's okay.
Were you like seriously pitching the idea, or was that you just joking? No.
I was half looped. I mean, we've been at this for like 3 or 4 hours. The three of us went through a case of beer. Come on, folks. I mean, even in my youth, I wasn't able to hold it that well.
That's good.
No, but you know what? I like the character. I like the idea. I grew up with Marvin in Chicago on WBKB Channel 7 when I was a kid. And that's when the first generation horror host came out in 57. And I thought that was cool to be, hosting horror movies. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun. They bought me a coffin. I thought that'd be kind of cool. Actually, funny story. I don't know stop me if I took, no, don't stop me.
No, you keep going.
We still hadn't gone on the air yet, but the sets had arrived and my coffin was back in the prop area. So it was late one night and I tended to hang around I was still on radio and I was hanging out with the guys and we were, I don't know what, and I said, I'm going to go take a little nap. So I went back and I opened the coffin, put myself in, closed the lid and took a little siesta. And suddenly I'm hearing voices. And it's the co-owner of the station with his wife. And I'm hearing him going, well, honey, this is our prop area. And there's the coffin that Dick's going to get out of when we host horror movies on Saturday night. I'm going, oh, shit. Don't open the lid. George, don't open the lid. And I'm just laying there as quiet as I can be. And he says, yeah, he's going to just come out, open the lid. He opens the lid and I'm going, hi. And she goes, yeah.
That's great.
And I said, see, George, it works.
So was it weird the first time you hopped in the coffin?
No. I have no fear of small places. Matter of fact, when I was in college a couple of years beforehand, I used to be a spelunker. We used to go digging around in caves in southern Illinois, which is riddled with caves. So we'd go cave exploring, and it was, that never bothered me.
That's interesting. Is it comfortable in there?
Not initially.
No.
I mean, the basic pine box is a pine box that back in the day, and this would have been back in 1970, they put some straw in the bottom. And I think they put straw on the bottom for a couple of reasons. One, just to cushion the body when it goes in. But sometimes I am told that the corpse will leak liquids, and if they put the straw will kind of absorb it. But eventually we put a lot more straw in to make it more comfortable. Eventually we took the straw out and put in foam rubber just to make it a little more comfortable getting in and out of. Not too much though, because right. You want to have some leverage. You don't want to be able to. At one point in Washington, we had one of our sponsors was Waterbed Ed, and he waterbed. So waterbeds. And of course, this again is the 70s. Actually, this was the 80s. Anyway, so he built a waterbed in my coffin, and it was ridiculous. I couldn't get out because it was going wallow, wallow, wallow.
That's good. That's funny. So it's safe to assume that at this point, you probably don't have like some fancy memory foam lined coffin or something.
Actually, I have a very fancy coffin. The new coffin actually is I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars the list price of it was. It's a solid maple. It's incredibly heavy. My favorite coffin was the one I had before this. This is the one I had the longest, which was a black metal coffin, which was really cool because metal coffins are light. So the lid's light to open it up. And if I could actually go to a personal appearance in the coffin, and my crew could carry me very easily. This thing, the lid on this thing is almost 80 pounds. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Wow.
And it's a deep coffin. And I didn't realize they came in different depths. And I was wondering why for the longest time I was having trouble getting out. And that's because I was way down. Normally I would just kind of sit up and then just sort of flop up, flip my legs over, except I had to push up. Matter of fact, I just recently raised the bottom up. I have about an inch and a half inch pad, not memory foam, but pad in there, so it's comfortable. So that's like, I guess that probably keeps you in shape, huh? Climbing in and out of the coffin. I do tend to stay in shape. And matter of fact, to get in and out of the coffin, yes, you do have to stay in shape. Let's face it, these things are designed to go in, not to come out of. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. We don't really need people starting to come out of them, that's for sure.
That's true.
Besides Gore Duvall, of course.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing that always bothered me about zombie movies. I'm segueing into something here. I'm taking over here.
You're good. You might guess.
That's fine. We bounce around all the time.
But I mean, you look at Night of the Living Dead, you look at all these zombie movies, you look at all these movies about the dead coming back, and there's something totally wrong. Go to any cemetery in America today for the past 70 years, more than that. By law, bodies are buried in coffins, and the coffins are put into concrete vaults when they're put into the ground, so the ground doesn't fall in when the coffin deteriorates. And so they can cut the grass. So if a zombie wanted to get out, first of all, you got to open the coffin. So you got a coffin, except you can't open it up because you're in a concrete box, which is now covered by 6 feet of dirt. You can't get out. So ain't no way. Yeah. Sorry.
So we'll have to worry about the fresh ones that reanimate rather than the buried ones.
Well, if they reanimate before they get in the grave, that's another story altogether. But once they're buried there, man, they're staying there.
They're not getting out. Yeah.
Now, if you go back to the old way where they're just in a crypt, a coffin inside a mausoleum, well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Hey, whoa, those old guys, like Dracula, man, he could come out.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned Night of the Living Dead. You were the first horror host to air an uncut, unedited version, weren't you?
Yes, I was, and it was not intentional.
No.
Okay, let me give you a little. People don't understand back in the day on how film worked on TV. Basically, studios sent out actual reels of 16 millimeter film. They called it. They put it on the bicycle around station to station. So say we were going to show. Today's a Saturday. Okay, say I was going to show Night of the Living Dead tonight. Okay, the film wouldn't arrive until Thursday. That's the first time we would see the film. The film would come in, and then it would go right to the film room. I couldn't watch it because it had to go to the film room where they would literally take it and cut it and splice in film commercials. And then once all that was done, then they would time it. The time would go to the traffic department. The traffic would put the times in and the commercial breaks and so forth and so on into the log. That would get printed off. I would never see the film. So, but what happens is during that period of time, most studios had theatrical prints, which were probably PG-13 to R. And then they had television prints, which were all PG. Okay. Well, what happened was we got a theatrical print of Night of the Living Dead. They got shipped down to the film department. They took one look at this and said, whoa, wait a second. There's some stuff in here we've never seen before. So the program director came up to me and says, hey, Dick, how would you like to show Night of the Living Dead unedited? And I go, I didn't know it was edited. I mean, seriously. I mean, I didn't get to see it ahead of time. He said, well, yeah, this is the unedited version. I says, well, why not? He said, I said, are we going to get into trouble with the FCC? He said, your show goes on at 11 o'clock. All those old guys, they're in bed at 9. Forget it. They're not going to see this stuff. So I said, okay, let's show it. So we did. It was, we had no kickback on that. We had 2 days to promote the unedited version of Night of the Living Dead. 2 things were put back into the film for the theatrical, or 2 things were taken out. Remember the scene where the one scene where you have a bunch of they weren't zombies at that time. They were ghouls.
Ghouls, yep.
The ghouls. And there was this one naked lady. You could see her bare butt.
Yep.
That was cut out for TV. You couldn't show a bare butt on TV. No cracks permitted. Okay. The other thing was, remember when they're at the gas pump and the thing explodes, and afterwards the ghouls are in there and they're digging through and they're pulling up the intestines and stuff and eating them?
Yep.
Bingo. That got cut out. Those are the only 2 things that were cut out. It was no big deal as far as horror fans go. Come on, folks. So everyone's seen a butt. I mean, who cares? I mean, anyway, so yeah, but it was cool. We could advertise. Hey, I showed it the unedited version.
So you guys did advertise it.
Oh yeah,
leading up to it,
But it was only for a couple of days because again, the films only arrived before we could air, which made it a little bit difficult or interesting trying to host horror movies because sometimes I wasn't familiar with the film. They would have a big book, basically a summary book, and it would be, they give it to me and say, okay, I would say, oh, what's this movie about? Here's the big book, and there'd be 3 lines. Scary monster, eats people, gets killed at the end. Okay, well, that tells me a lot. At which point, then you'd have to riff off the title. I mean, you say, okay, let's play with the title. Or since we were in Washington, probably too many times I ripped off the political situation of the time, which means that we couldn't rerun them very often because couldn't rerun them at all because
they become dated. Yeah.
come to think of it, before 1984, we didn't save any film, any of these segments, or very few, because we had very limited a supply of tape. Back then, 2-inch helical tape, which is what was used to record on, was $300 an hour. And that's $300 in $1970, $1972. That was a lot of money. And the general manager gave us, basically we had two one-hour reels, and we'd go in, we'd record once a month, and we record basically 4 movies, and we had to fit them on those 2 reels, and that was all we had. Bingo.
It's definitely
then we record over them.
It's way different than now with all the digital and all that stuff. It's crazy. It's cool. I mean, it's definitely more work, more labor intensive back in the day. I feel like it's cool hearing the stories about how it all worked, but at the same time it's really a bummer because all that footage that's lost. It would be so amazing to see it all now.
Yeah. Starting in 76, when 3/4 inch came in, 3/4 inch U-matic cassettes, we started saving some of them on 3/4 inch. Our chief engineer absolutely refused to let us air any of it. He said it does not meet FCC standards. Who cared? But we did save some of it. But the stuff from the 70s, there's not much. 80s, starting in the 80s, we went to 1-inch, and it was cheaper, and we saved a lot of it. Matter of fact, I have all of the footage we shot from 1984 through 1987. And it's been transferred, and it is being stored by the Library of Congress in Culpeper, Virginia, in a nuclear-proof shelter, believe it or not. It's being archived. At the time, they said they were under orders to archive local television production. They came to me and said, "You got tape?" And I got lots of tape. They just took it all and they transferred it all and brought it back to me. I said, "Thank you." So, 10,000 years in the future, they'll go through there, they'll come up with these reels, and there I'll be.
Yeah. You'll still be doing the show, right?
Still be doing it.
On Roku. Is there ever any plan to release any of that in any way?
Oh, a lot of that stuff has been released. I mean, we've shown some. Matter of fact, the whole classic series, of which actually there's 6, maybe 7 of the classic series I've released. Part of the problem is releasing not the footage, but releasing the movies. A lot of when we're on broadcast, we weren't worried whether the movie was in public domain. The station paid for the rights to show the movie. So basically, right now, I could only show movies that were movies that I hosted that are currently in public domain.
Right.
And so there's only 6 or 7 of them that go back to those days.
Right. So about the process of putting together a show, I guess we'll lean towards currently. How do you approach the film? Do you watch it a couple times and just kind of take notes as you go through, and then decide here's where we're going to cut in, here's where we're going to cut in? Or
actually, it's a little more convoluted. Because we are producing many months in advance now, because of a variety of situations concerning the conditions of our studio as far as temperature goes. I first of all, I have to find films that are really in the public domain, because I don't want to have anyone send me a cease and desist letter. And frankly, since I don't make any money off of the show, I can't afford to pay the rights to show non-public domain movies, unless someone says, "Oh, we'll let you do it," and then I will. All right. So I find out what's available. and there's quite a bit available. Some of it fell through the cracks. Some of it is legitimate, long old. Yeah, there's a variety of ways to determine it. Anyway, so then I look at one, the title. I look at the content of the film, what the plot of the film is, and then I say, what do I feel like I want to do? And sometimes I will again just riff on the title. Sometimes I will riff on the content of the movie. Sometimes I don't do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 where I'm going to make fun of the film, because there's only like 3 or 4 movies that I just think really they're beyond salvation. The Beast of Yucca Flats, Manos, The Hands of Fate. Those are 2 that come right off the top of my head. So I won't, sometimes I'll ignore the film and say, particularly if it's a world famous events going on that need to be addressed. So basically you kind of approach it as if you're doing a monologue in a comedy club. Sometimes I'm trying to be informative. Right now we have a couple of new movies that just fell into the public domain. One of them, House by the Cemetery. Actually, it's going up tonight. It's Lucio Fulci's one made in America film. Although he used Italian actors, everyone speaks English. Although like so many foreign films, everyone spoke English, and then they went and overdubbed it anyway. So it doesn't make any difference. But so we'll talk about sometimes the trivia of the film. I mean, sometimes it's very fascinating to find out what really was going on in the background of these films. There was a lot of stuff going on in the background of Theater of Blood with Vincent Price and Diana Rigg. Matter of fact, there was a whole scandal going on. He was about ready to dump his first wife during the making of the movie. So anyway, I mean, things like that going on. Sometimes it's just what I think will work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it works, I keep it. If it doesn't, we'll do something else the next time.
So, like you said, you go with what works. What doesn't work, you cut. Are there any points where you, like, when you're filming, you improvise something and it turns out better than what you initially wrote, and you're like, all right, we're going with this?
Yeah, a lot of times, because you have to understand that most of the time nothing is really scripted, it's formatted. So the format will be like open, Gore comes out of the coffin, Gore talks about the background of the movie, or Gore mentions the fact that there is a scandal, or Gore does this, maybe make some bullet points that I want to touch so I don't forget them, and go to movie. I mean, that's pretty much it. Since I never have had and don't have any side characters, there's never any kind of this that we have to script out. We had one back in the 80s. I had one guest come on, and she was an actress, and she was a theatrical actress. So she actually showed up with a script in hand. She walks into the studio and said, here's a script for the show. And it's about, that thick. I said, we're rolling tape in 20 minutes. She says, well, memorize it. Oh, yeah. Okay. I said, well, how about if we do it this way? I read the script, and then we throw it away, and then we do it. So I read the script, and I knew where she wanted to go, and we just took it from there, and it worked out okay. But there's very rarely any script per se. So it's all formatted with ideas, concepts, and bullet points, and then we take it from there. And that's the way I've always done it.
So generally, how long does it take to produce an episode for you guys? I mean, is it pretty quick, or do you have a lot of hiccups? Or, you've been doing it a while, so you probably know the
Got a
format.
good system, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, once we get into studio, it's fast. I mean, there are very few times when we actually have to stop and redo anything. Usually it's a technical problem, or it's a my mouth doesn't work problem.
I have that from time to time. I get it.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get words like, well, this is a organic, and instead of organic, it'll be orgasmic. And I'm going, no, wait a second, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, wrong movie.
Let's back that up. Take two. But no, so it goes pretty fast. I don't like to waste time in the studio. Now, if we're doing some stuff where we've got some special effects, or we're having cutaways, sometimes we're doing a green screen. Occasionally we'll do I have a 20-foot wide, 12-foot high green screen. I mean, we can do huge amounts of special effects on the green screen. I don't do it that often because, frankly, that'll take a whole session just to set it up to do like one movie if we're doing green screen. And so basically I like to be efficient. I like to matter of fact, they used to say that at no time did Dick ever stop. He just kept right on going. We just roll with the punches.
Do you have a personal preference in the movies that you show? Like, is there like a style of horror that you really enjoy, creature features, or something like that, slasher or whatever? Is there something you really like?
When you're having to deal with public domain, you don't have a whole lot of choice.
Yeah, the list isn't very long.
I mean, well, actually, it's moderately long. I mean, I think there probably, last I checked, there were about 75 films that every horror host in the world is showing. Occasionally we'll get a producer that comes to me and says, Dick, I just had it. Jimmy O came to me and he says, Dick, how would you like to show Chainsaw Sally? Now, Chainsaw Sally was an independent film made in Baltimore in the early 2000s. The Count had a cameo role in it. They kept mentioning him, and every time there was a TV in the background, he would be on the TV. And they would keep mentioning the Count was, although he didn't have a speaking role as far as the script went. Anyway, so Jimmy says, how would you like to show it? I said, I'd love to show it. So we did, and that was cool. So that was not public domain, but it was with the consent of the producer. And actually, he made another movie available to me. Unfortunately, it would have been NC-17, and I felt uncomfortable with it. At least one scene in it, and we talked about it, and he didn't want to cut it. And I said, I can't do it, but that's okay, But we have Double D Avenger was one of the ones that came up. William Winkler allowed me. There was another one of his films that we've shown a couple times, but do I have a preference? Gosh, I like old school horror, tight style horror. I like a lot of atmosphere. I like spooky atmosphere. So, the few Hammer films that are out there that are available, some of the Corman films that were the better Corman films, where you had, great costumes. The script may be a little weak. The acting may be, but it got to the point. So, I'm not much into slashers. I mean, I enjoy watching a good slasher film, but I wouldn't, because I wouldn't do slasher theater. I mean, not even slasher films. I like a variety. I also like, and I get some grief about this. I like scary movies, and I don't care what genre they're in. And I just had someone just really just berate me for this. They said, what's your favorite horror movie? And I said, well, I don't answer that question. I'll say my favorite scary movie. And they, what's your favorite scary movie? I said, Alien, because Alien is truly scary. And he said, well, that's not a horror movie. That's a science fiction movie. You can't do that.
No, it's both. Yeah,
no,
it's kind of rides that fence.
Yeah.
Although I was actually drummed out of a science fiction convention for showing up in a vampire costume, and I was a guest. And they said, you have no business here. These were These are people paying admission to be there. Get the hell out of here. You know, I'm going, whoa, okay. It's like, okay, I mean, whatever. Show me a science fiction movie that is worth its salt, that doesn't have some scares in it.
Well, and the atmosphere itself is scary, even if they're not intending for it to be a scary movie.
Yeah.
You know, just like being out in space itself is kind of scary enough.
Oh, I mean, look, frankly, I think most people are claustrophobic. Imagine being stuck in a tin can where you couldn't leave and knowing that there is this acid dripping monster after you and you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
How much scarier can you be? That's worse than a monster under the bed. Come on.
And it scares the hell out of you, and you barely even see the thing.
Yeah. And not to mention the fact you got to, you know, bursting out of somebody's chest. You know, like, wow.
So, have you stumbled upon anything new that you actually happen to like? I mean, I know you said you enjoy a lot of classic horror, but just have you, you know, maybe while streaming or you know, hanging out with at home or whatever, have you found anything that you were surprised by that you enjoyed?
Well, actually, I'm feeling very, very bad here because I'm struggling right now to come up with titles. There was The Conjuring was one film that really I loved. I really enjoyed The Conjuring. I thought that was good. I thought the first Saw movie was intriguing. Unfortunately, I realized as soon as it was over that they were going to stretch this one out to the point that it was going to, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was very disappointed in Spiral, which of course was the last attempt at the Saw movies.
I really wanted to like that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
I do this all the time. I usually rely on him to have the memory.
The guy was captured in a house. It was about 4 years ago. And I'd have to look up the IMDb. I'm sorry. But there were a number of ones that have come out that I thought were pretty decent. You know, if you go back to classics though, I mean, the one that the Evil Dead. I mean, come on.
Oh, one of my top favorites.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
That's fun.
Bruce Campbell. Who likes Bruce Campbell?
Me.
Let me tell you a Bruce Campbell story. Back in the late 90s, I was invited to this convention in Baltimore, and Bruce Campbell was one of the guests. And it was held in this hotel. It was the Marriott at the airport. And this was not a great convention hotel. This was just a hotel. And they said, we want the Count to host the costume competition. And I'm going, where's it going to be held? In the lobby. In the lobby. And we're going to have Bruce Campbell help you. He's agreed to this? Well, not yet. Make a long story short, we get into this lobby of this Marriott hotel, and there is this crowd of people. We have no stage, no flow, whatever. And Bruce, being the trooper that he is, joined me. No microphone, no PA system. And we drove our voices to the point of losing them. And did this. We did it the second year the same way. So Bruce and I go back to these conventions, but I've always liked him. I've liked his movies. I was a big fan of Briscoe County Jr. And so we're doing this one convention. Now, this is several years later. Now the convention's meandered up to the Hunt Valley Inn in suburban Maryland, suburban Baltimore. And he's now a big deal. Bruce is now a big deal, and he's now an A celeb, and I'm still Count Gore Duvall. And I'm still hosting these horror costume contests. Anyway, so it's Saturday night, and I am dying. I hadn't had anything to eat all day, and I just need a quick bite of something. I've got like a half hour before I have to be in the big hall where we're going to have 100 contestants put across a stage, and I've got to coordinate all this. So I go to the restaurant's full, no seating. I go to the bar is full. There's no place. They said, well, there is a small table out here in the hallway. I said, I'll take it. So they bring me out a menu. I'm in full costume, and I'm out in this hallway. Now I'm at the hallway. The bar's over here. I can see the bar, and over here is the entrance to the restaurant. I don't care. I don't care what's going on. I'm just focused. I need to get some food, inhale it, and get the heck out of there. So I'm doing that. And I'm saying, just please, no one bother me. I just need to get this done. So the food comes out real quick, and I'm starting to eat, and I see my peripheral vision, this hulking figure coming from the restaurant to me. You know, I like fans. I really do like people. I love fans, but I needed to eat. And it's getting closer. He's getting closer. And he's getting closer. And I'm going, I'm going to ignore it. Maybe he or she's going to go away. And then finally, his big hands on my shoulder. And he says, "Hey, Count, it's great to see you again." I look up, and there's Bruce Campbell. He was eating in the restaurant, having a nice meal at a real table. And he saw me out here by myself and came out to say hello. Fanboy moment. I'm going, come on.
Has there been any point where you were kind of starstruck by somebody you were talking to?
To approach, because I'm kind of starstruck. One of them was Gates McFadden. I had a crush on her.
Right.
I've only been turned down by one celebrity for an interview 3 times.
Oh.
And that was, what's his name? Oh, I knew this was gonna come up. The Reanimator.
Oh,
Jeff Combs. Yeah.
Jeff Combs, 3 times he turned me down, and I don't understand why. But that's that. Actually, I have stopped doing at conventions the interviews, because frankly, now I'm a B+ person at these conventions, and I've been told it's not cool for me to do that. There are people who go around and do the podcasts and video casts and all that do this, and I should just shut up and sit down and sign autographs and then be interviewed by them. So I am looking forward in July, Scares and Cares in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm going to be reunited with longtime convention cohort Dee Wallace. And
cool.
Dee
She's
and
so
I,
sweet.
yeah,
Yes.
she's a sweetie. She was one of the first people I interviewed. There you go. I decided that if I'm going to interview celebrities, we got to do it right. And now this was a long time ago when they weren't making quite as much money from selling stuff. Just reality is set in. So here's what I would do. I'd say, come on up to my room. And I have my room set up. We have 2 chairs. We have some good wine, some snacks. We'd have lights set up, 2 cameras, and come on up and we'll do an interview. And that's how I started off doing interviews. But the problem was, after a couple of years of this, they realized that they were going to be, especially if they have a little wine, they're going to be up there a while, and they're not going to be making as much money because they're going to be away from their table. Yeah. So that went away. But Dee is one of my first interviews, and every time I see her, it's just always a delight. She's just a wonderful person. I can't wait to see her again.
I met her a few years back at a convention, and she was just so She made you feel like you weren't just a fan at a convention. She made you feel like you were like an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
She just very, hugs for everybody and just she takes time with everybody, and it's awesome.
You know who else? You know who else is Michael Berryman.
Oh my God. Another amazing, wonderful person.
And when he was alive, Sid Haig, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kane Hodder is another one that
he's fun.
Just a wonderful guy. There were a few people I had to really talk into doing interviews. And then I'll be honest with you, I'm a pretty good interviewer. I was a newspaper reporter, or not newspaper, but a TV, radio news reporter for a while. And I know how to talk with people, and I know how to listen, which is important. And I've done some really good interviews, and I've had people actually thank me afterwards for, the job I did, because it worked out okay. What's his name? It'll come to me. I was thinking about blank. Oh, father-son duo. Oh, that'll come to me. Anyway, there were a couple people that actually came up after me. Matter of fact, one guy, and I wish I could remember his name. I interviewed him. He came down. He was hungover, and he didn't want to do it. But his father, it was there. I just interviewed him. He insisted on it, and the interview went on for more than a half hour because it just flowed. And he was just. I saw him in Seattle. I was at a terminal. I must have been in an airport, and he came through with his entourage because he was on his way to Vancouver to film. And he stopped and goes, he recognized me out of costume and came over and chatted me up. And I'm going, whoa, this is kind of cool. So yeah, it's kind of fun. We lost somebody.
Uh-oh. Did we?
Yeah.
Steve? Oh, no.
Oh, no.
What happened? Hold on. I'll send him a message.
There was this guy saying, brains. No.
Okay. He said, keep it going. All right.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So,
Mark Shepard. That's the guy.
Oh, that's the name. Okay.
Mark Shepard.
I'm glad it came back to you.
Yes, and his father, who just recently died, who was a very classical British actor who did lots of Shakespeare, but also did a lot of science fiction. Father, son, yeah, they were great interviews. Loved them.
Great, yeah. I mean, it's nice when you can actually have a decent conversation, and it doesn't seem like the questions are robotic, if it's organic and it just feels natural, and I don't know, it just makes you feel like the listener, well, at least if you're listening, it makes you feel like you're in the room with them. And
yeah, well, I think you hit it. You actually got it. I think an interview has got to be conversational.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake of early, people starting this thing is they come in with a list of questions. Wrong.
Yeah.
You should know the person you're dealing with at least enough that you can understand what they're saying, and then take your cue from what they're saying. And if they have nothing to say, then go on to maybe a question, but that a totally new question. But most of the time, if you get a conversation going, people are really happy to talk about their work and what they're doing and their career and how wonderful they are.
Yeah. I like to have a list. I like to have a few questions and like points that I want to attempt to hit, but I let the conversation go. And a lot of times, I'll have a question and you'll start answering it, and it'll trigger something better, like a better point or topic to bring up, and it just just like to let it go, improvise a little.
Yeah, if you're listening, then you'll come up with questions along the way, and
it shows that you're paying attention to who you're interviewing.
Yeah, and on often they're better than the ones you might have come up with ahead of time.
That's true. That's true. So now look down there at the list of questions you had for me and hit you a couple.
Let's see here. Well, I was going to bring up when we were talking about celebrities, if you were ever able to catch back up with Forey Ackerman after his appearance.
You know, it was stupid of me for feeling the way I did.
Yeah.
But I after we did the Forey Ackerman interview on the show, and maybe for people who aren't aware of it, I'm doing a show. I'm hosting a movie, The Brain That Wouldn't Die. A good friend of mine, who's a personal friend of Forey Ackerman, says, "Hey, Forey's in town. I'm bringing him over. I want you can put him on your show." And I go, "Who?" She goes, "Forey Ackerman." I go, "Who?" She goes, "Famous Monster Magazine." I go, "Okay." And I never was into Famous Monster Magazine. I was aware of it. And I did not know Forey or know much about him. So she brings Forey to the station and she takes me into the back and gives me a 30-second thumbnail of who he is, what he's doing. And I go, okay. So I go out and meet him. He's a wonderful person. And we have 7 segments of wonderful interview, but it was very obvious that to him that I didn't know what I was talking about. Now, fortunately, I was able to listen to what he was saying, and I was able to pick up enough to follow it. So it was a pretty decent interview, but it's still, I felt really bad. I felt personally bad that I was not prepared. So every time I would see him at a convention, I would nod, say hello, but I would stay away because I felt that I kind of ripped him off. And to this day, I think that was really stupid of me. And I do stupid things every once in a while.
We all do.
I felt really bad, and particularly because as he was getting near the end, he was suffering from dementia, and he was having memory problems, and it was I should have been more sensitive to the situation, and I wasn't.
Well, I mean, it's still pretty awesome that you did get the time with him and
Yes.
chat with him. That, it's kind of a lot of us younger folks who spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time, researching and reading back all the old stories and getting into all the old, the horror host thing. Growing up, I didn't have a horror host, so I'm learning about yourself and other hosts before you by the little information that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that Mr. Ackerman was himself a huge fan, and he took that fandom and turned it into a whole enterprise, you know what I mean, with the magazine and everything, and he became a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool that you did get to have that, like I said, have that time with him.
But I do learn from my mistakes. So when I met Bob Burns,
yep,
I took advantage of the situation and tried to befriend him the best I could. And Bob is a wonderful, gregarious person, and his wife is his late wife, who recently passed, was delightful also. So in 2009, when we were in San Diego at Comic-Con, we were showing Every Other Day is Halloween, which is the documentary of my career, which, by the way, is coming out on DVD with a lot of extras.
Oh, is it coming again?
Yeah, for the 50th anniversary, they're coming out with a Blu-ray, which they have so much stuff on it. It's actually a secondary mini doc on it. So anyway, but I don't want to go too far in that. Anyway, so we were there, we were in San Diego, and I insisted that we rent a car and drive up to Burbank and go see Bob. And Carlos Borloff, myself, Curtis Prather, who did Every Other Day. I don't think Mr. Lobo was rooming with us. We had gotten a multi-bedroom suite for the convention, so we split it up and it made it economically feasible. I don't think he went to Burbank with us, but we got to see Bob, got to see his wife, got to see his collection. which is awesome.
That's amazing.
And then, having learned that, I says, there's one person that I really wanted to see talking about horror hosts, and that's Zachary, because Zachary was the last of the major original horror hosts from the 57 shock package.
Yep.
And so back, I guess around 11 or 12, maybe 13, maybe 12 or 13, I got together with Halloween Jack and Carlos, and we drove up to New York. And we got to actually spend an afternoon with John Zachary. And actually a friend of his has a lot of his set in his basement. So we actually got to see him on his set. We all got interviews with him. And I got him telling some stories, and it was awesome. And so I learned my lesson.
Yeah. We're still learning those lessons, but we're getting there. People are starting to like us. So we've been on here a little while, starting to wind down a little bit. Before we do, you personally, what does it mean to you to actually be a horror host?
Oh, wow. There's a couple levels on this. One, it has turned out to be a necessary creative outlet for me. Frankly, people ask me, when are you going to retire? I mean, I've been doing this for almost 50 years now, and I'm not getting any younger. But I keep saying, why would I retire? Why would I retire from what? What would I do instead? I enjoy it. I enjoy entertaining people. I enjoy the genre. I enjoy meeting people. I can't wait for this pandemic to be over. For the last, up until 2020, we were doing live hosted movies at the American Film Institute in Washington, and that was great. Rubbing elbows with the fans, biting necks, and having all that great fun. We're going back and we're doing the Horror of Dracula, the Christopher Lee's first Dracula movie, May 28th, assuming that we don't have another significant pandemic event. So we're going to be doing that again. So I enjoy meeting with folks. I really do enjoy people. I've been locked down for 2 years and I miss it terribly, getting out. So yeah, I mean, it means the opportunity to actually meet really good people. I have found that horror fans are generally really nice people. It kind of amazed me. Horror Find, which was held up at the Hunt Valley Inn many years ago. There was a regular convention, and man, for Cinema Wasteland the same way. I mean, people, you're standing in line, and here's this guy, and you say, oh, he's a horror fan. He's dressed in black. He's maybe got piercings and all this, and yet he's saying please and thank you, and he's being polite, and he's letting people get in line. And I'm going, you can't characterize people by the genre of film they enjoy. These are nice people, and they are usually very good people, and they get sometimes portrayed poorly, and they don't deserve it. It always turned out to be that the people who did the prank at conventions, like set off a fire alarm, were just drunk college kids who had nothing to do with horror. They were just stupid. So yeah,
very passionate too.
Yeah.
Yes, they are passionate, and they're good. And you can get a good discussion going on the pros and cons of the film, the plot, the directors, the actors, and they're knowledgeable. So yeah, it's fun.
Very, very.
Yeah.
We definitely love our community.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great being a part of it.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, it's funny when, the whole idea about people saying like, when are you going to retire? Like, well, you've been doing it for so long. It's such a big part of your life. Like, why would you want to? Why would you want to let that go? I mean, you obviously you enjoy it. It makes you happy. Like, that's a funny question.
And you can still do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense to me. I don't, to be frank about it, I guess I sort of am semi-retired in the fact that I don't, at this point in my life, I'm not required to make a living off of it. I mean, I really empathize with people like Elvira, who has spent her entire career scraping through the Hollywood system and through Los Angeles, trying to keep a career going in that kind of environment that is so brutally competitive. And she succeeded. She's always she's a good businesswoman. She's always looking for the next thing that can keep her going. And I just think it's awesome. I frankly, if I were in that situation, I couldn't do it. I don't have that kind of tenacity. I was very fortunate to be involved in the very end of the age of local entertainment production. And I had a studio behind me and then working to support me and what I was doing. But boy, I'll tell you, the freelance people, it's tough.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before we wrap up, since we've taken enough of your day, kind of caught you in the middle of the afternoon, what is the best way for fans to continue to follow you and still watch the show?
2 ways. We came out with Creature Feature, the weekly web program, as the first hosted horror host thing on the internet in '98. It still goes. It happens every Saturday night. Somewhere around 6 o'clock Eastern time, I put it up and it runs for a full week. It's at countgore.com. I host, like this week, I'm putting up House by the Cemetery. Like I said, that'll run for 2 weeks. Next week, I'll put up a short, that'll stay up for 2 weeks. Then the next week will be a new video, but it'll be a short video. So they're staggered. Long video, short video. Okay. I like short films. I like promoting new filmmakers because they're the future of the industry. And if you can make a really good, take a story and condense it and get it into a short piece of time, wow, that's awesome. So that's there. We have some celebrity interviews on there. We have Dita Dirtnap, who is our Los Angeles person. She reviews culty DVDs. This week it's Night of the Lepus and Evil Bong.
Oh boy.
We have an ongoing contest. Some bizarre links to some bizarre news stories that you might have missed. So that happens every Saturday night. So that's the easiest way, because you can get me on phone, tablet, computer. If you've got a Roku, bingo, for the past now almost 4 years, I've had a Roku channel, Count Gore Duvall Presents, and it's a curated channel. It's at the beginning of usually the first day of the month, sometimes depending on Roku, it might be the first or second day. We put up 4 hosted horror movies. So basically 1 per Saturday, 4 celebrity interviews, myself and Todd Stork. I always mispronounce the last name. Todd's
the horror nerd.
Yeah, the horror nerd.
Yeah,
does a great job. Anyway, so we split that up. He does 2, I do 2, and then we have 2 short hosts. I host 2 short films. So there's 10 videos each month. So April's right now, we're halfway through it. And a matter of fact, when I'm done here, I'm going to go back to that computer and I'm going to start working on the May Roku, because it's got to be up for their Roku's approval next week. So that's the best way to do it. And then if you're in an area where I'm going to be making appearances, please come on out. Like I said, the 28th of May, I'll be at the American Film Institute in Silver Spring, Maryland, with The Horror of Dracula. That is live hosted. We start the show off with clips from my TV and internet shows just to get the mood going. Do a short monologue. We bring down guests. We have interactive, usually a contest. This time it'll be since there's so much. We're celebrating, by the way, Christopher Lee's 100th birthday, which is the May 27th. So we're going to do a lot of Christopher Lee trivia. And then we show the movie. And I don't stop the movie. We run it uninterrupted. And then we hang out in the lobby afterwards and just have a great time. And then we'll do Scares That Cares in Williamsburg, Virginia in June. I'm coming out west. Right now I'm booked in, I get them confused. Irving, Texas. I've got a convention in Irving, Texas, and there's another one pending in Phoenix. So we'll be doing some of that. And next year we'll be doing, with the 50th anniversary, we'll be doing more stuff around the country. So that's it.
Now you mentioned, you briefly mentioned a DVD with some of your previous content that might be coming out. Any idea?
The documentary. They're releasing the documentary.
Yeah, the documentary. Yes. The documentary. Every Other Day is Halloween. This was produced by Curtis Prather. It's a 90-minute feature-length film. It covers my career as Bozo Captain 20, but mainly Count Gore Duvall in Washington, and how I relate to other horror hosts around the country. There's a lot of other horror hosts involved in the production of this. That has worked out really well, but it's now 10 years, more than 10 years later, and this, I'm still working. So Curtis said, let's do something else. So he was down here in December, and we did some more interviews, and we found some more footage and newer footage. And he's gone to some other horror hosts and some other celebrities to get stuff. So he's putting that together. He's also going to have John Dimes, who's a Washington area horror host. Also, there's a short documentary on him called Bald Headed Blues. That'll be on that disc. There'll also be, for those people who are from the Washington, D.C. area, the Channel 20 Club Card, a copy of. That was a thing that the Captain 20 did. It was very, very popular. It was the way we gave away prizes on the kid shows. So that's coming out later this fall. I don't have a date yet, but it's basically setting up for the 50th anniversary. And for the 50th anniversary, which will be February 3rd, 2023, we're going to hopefully we'll do that at the AFI where we did the 40th anniversary. We also have a commemorative T-shirt for 50 years. And like I said, I'm hoping to work out with a management company to do a national tour and see what happens.
Oh, we would love to see you get up here to Seattle. That would be.
Hey, as I told you, my childhood best buddies up there, and I every time I don't get off to the West Coast very often. It's a long way away, but I'd love to get out there. I've got good reason now.
There you go. If it looks like you need any help getting something going up here, reach out. We'll definitely do what we can to help and bring a crowd with us and all that good stuff.
That sounds like an invitation that I shouldn't turn down, so I won't.
Great. Well, hey, Mr. Dyszel, thank you for hanging out with us and spending your Saturday afternoon.
And thank you to your audience for tolerating all my ramblings. I hope they enjoy it.
Oh, we love it. We love it.
And thank you for thinking of me.
Absolutely.
It's good to be remembered.
Very cool. Well, everybody, Dick Dyszel, aka Bozo the Clown, Captain 20, and the legendary Count Gore Duvall.
Okay, wait a second. Let me do the sign off for all three. As Bozo would say, "Wooly Kazooie, keep on laughing." As Captain 20 would say, "May you be happy and wins lots of prizes, space buddies." And as the Count would say, "May all your blood be warm." There you go. All three.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You can see. I don't know if you can see. I got you hanging up on the wall behind me, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere up there. That's my horror host wall of fame.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than a wall of shame.
Wall of, yeah, for sure.
Hey, this is Dr. Gangrene. You're watching the Steve. No, you're not. You're listening to the Steve and Crypto Show right here on whatever network you're on. I don't know what you're on. Don't ask me. I can't see what you're doing, but keep listening and tune in next week for more cool content on the Steve and Crypto Show.
Thanks a million times to Dick Dyszel, a.k.a. Count Gore, for hanging out. That was quite a treat. I'm honestly still amazed that I had like an hour to chat with like such a legend. You know, that was pretty cool. So make sure you guys go check out his Roku channel and his site. And also, just support horror hosts. You know, support them. Support my friend Gore. He's a horror host. I help him with his social media and stuff. So support him. He's actually pushing 300 subscriptions on YouTube. So find the Igoro Show YouTube channel and subscribe over there and check it out. He's got lots more coming. He's awesome. So yeah, just support horror hosts. It's a John Stanley calls it a American folk art, and I agree 100%. So do that. Go get the new issue of Fangoria and see TJ Tranchel's article. Sadly, I haven't picked up one yet, but I'm going to as soon as I get out of town. We don't have a place to get Fangoria in my town, and I'm basically tethered to work. So, yeah, I'll get on that. Gotta show my homies some love. Yeah, so thanks, TJ, for the assist at the beginning of the episode. It was good chatting with you. Super excited and proud of you for getting that article in there, and look forward to hearing more about your new book in October. With that being said, let's get to this week's horror trivia. I mentioned last week a little bit that we should come up with like a cool little jingle or something to go into the horror trivia bit. So if you guys got any ideas, or anybody makes little spooky sounding music or anything, let us know. Maybe we'll get you to hook something up for us. But here's the trivia this week. So should be a pretty easy one. Remember, if you know the answer, message the Steve Strout or CryptoZoo88. Give us the answer. We will send you some stickers and stuff and put your name in a drawing for a bigger prize. Okay, the question. But keep on rambling. Which movie does the line "Wolfman's got nards" come from? Wolfman's got nards. Name the movie. You guys should know this one. And I guess we're going to wrap up the episode now. You guys got the trivia. You guys got to meet Dick Dyszel, a.k.a. Count Gore. I think we had a good episode. Crypto should be back next week. I know you guys probably missed him. And, yeah, let's wrap it up. Be sure to visit patreon.com/SteveCrypto, buymeacoffee.com/SteveCrypto. Visit our Facebook group, join that, get in on the conversation over there. And what else can you do? You could go to our merch shop on Etsy. Go into Etsy and just search Steve Crypto. I don't memorize the whole URL. We need a Crypto here for that. He memorizes it. I don't. I'm old. He's the youngster of the group. So yeah, do that. And keep listening. We will talk to you guys soon. We've been the Steve and Crypto Show. And Crypto will be back ASAP. Bye guys.